Bob, whatever you want to call me. That was my probably pretty terrible rendition of a memorized song from grad school, and I have no idea how I just remembered that. Anyway, today, and that's kind of topical what I just played, we're going to talk about sound concept. Now, what is a sound concept? Maybe some of you guys have heard this term. Probably a lot of you have not heard this term. A sound concept is basically what you have in your head before and when you play. It's like what you want to sound like. Maybe this is kind of alien-like. You know, I just play. There's no extra steps, right? The problem is you do need to have this sound concept in order to get better, in order to sound good. A sound concept is what a sound concept. I can speak. I swear, even though you guys never see it, I can talk in complete sentence without messing up. A sound concept is really what propels your progress as a player and a musician. In a negative light, if you don't have one, you're gonna have a really hard time moving forward until you do. I mean, it's just kind of how it is. I think you can go back to my older videos in high school and the early undergrad years. I really didn't have so much of a sound concept. I had a sound concept, but it was kind of a bad one. It was not really what anybody would want to hear from a bass trombonist. And I kind of just survived on sounding like kind of good enough for most things, but not really being specific to myself about what I wanted to sound like. Those of us mortals, people like me, people like you, we need to get our sound concepts, and I talked about this a little bit in the trombone empathy video, from everywhere that we can get them. And I'll talk a little more about how later. And those people that you listen to, like Joseph Alessi and George Coran, and that's 2/3 of the New York Phil trombone section for some reason. Those people grew up with their varied sound concepts. They wanted to sound like these different people, and then at a certain point, and there's no way to pinpoint this, of course, they realized they wanted to sound like themselves. And that's how they've gotten to the point that they've gotten to, the very tippy top of the musician trombone world. They just sound like themselves now. Their sound concept is so iron, it's so set in stone that they're unbeatable. They just sound like them, and they sound amazing. And that's how they got to that point. There's lots of other things that got them to that point, but without that sound concept kind of leading up to this me thing, they never would have gotten close to that. You can go as far as you want with just chops and etc., but if you don't know what you want to sound like, you're going to have a really hard time getting any farther than that. So, how does this affect playing? What exactly are you listening for with a sound concept? Or what are you trying to achieve? It's not just the sound in the middle of a note. If you just listen to me play concert F here, I don't think that's especially great sound, but if you just listen to the sound in the middle of that note, that's not the only thing you're listening to. Sometimes we get obsessed with tone, we get obsessed with sound. I mean, I do too. And we think it's just the sound in the middles of the notes, and that's kind of it. Everything else is whatever. If the sound in the middle of the notes is good, everything else is good. This is a large part of a sound concept. I think it's probably one of the more important parts, but I don't even know if it's the most important part. There's also articulation. I think this one is so important, and I've come to realize this lately, I think. The articulation is what sets up that middle part of the note, right? If you don't have a good articulation, the rest of the note can sound great, but everyone's just like, man, what a lame way to start that note. And I would agree. I don't think that's a good way to start a note. Articulation is just so important. Of course, there's not only the one way to articulate. There's so many different ways to articulate. So you really have to have an idea of what you want to sound like at any given time. Or your articulation might be wrong for the style. It might just be a bad articulation because you don't really know what you're doing, etc. Releases, how you end a note. Probably don't want to do that 100% of the time. I hear a lot of students doing that, cutting notes off with the tongue, cutting it off with the throat. That's not a typical release. And that's something you need to be aware of and you need to listen for in the players you want to sound like. How you breathe, you will not see a lot of professionals breathe like that. Put the mouthpiece on the face, breathe through the nose and play. Probably not how they're going to play, right? Try and emulate the way they breathe. It's that trombone empathy thing again. You just kind of do what they do, even if you don't completely understand it, and things will kind of work out usually. And it's just kind of feel like the next thing on my script is basically what I said. How you play is something you can steal from your idols. Literally just watch how they prepare for a phrase or something and just kind of do that. Something that I see in some of my idols, and I'm going to talk about this in a second, is that they're very aware of how they present themselves before they play. So before a slow passage in a solo, they'll prepare themselves like that. And in a fast passage, they'll prepare themselves like that. It's just these little things that you can steal. It's not just the sound in the middle of the note. There's so many different things that you can steal. And it's every aspect of that. Not just how it looks, but how they're doing things inside, how they're breathing, how they're preparing mentally. And of course, more advanced things like musicality, how people approach phrases and entire pieces and stuff like that. That's kind of like the next level past just playing well. The musicality part is what sets those people at the top apart from everybody else down below. And things like style that are so important. It's really easy to... There's a lot of works in like the orchestral literature that are pretty easy to just kind of play. And, like playing in tune and playing in time, and it sounds good. But if you don't play with that extra amount of style, then it's just kind of boring. If you put that style in there, the right articulations, the right releases, the right lengths of notes, all these kinds of things, that really is what sets it off. And that's something you have to have in your sound concept. You're not going to be able to do it. You can't just kind of go cold turkey and hope for the best. It's not going to work out very well. And so how do we get these sound concepts? I'm going to tell you in a later video because I don't want to put this all in one video and just blow everybody's minds. But I will tell you my story. I've been playing tenor trombone basically every day for the last couple weeks, along with bass. I play both. I'll play an exercise on tenor, then I play an exercise on bass, then an exercise on tenor, then an exercise on bass, and I'll just do that for a couple hours. And I'm getting a lot better at bass trombone, and I'm getting kind of better at tenor trombone. I am getting better, but it's a much slower process. And a lot of that is because, yes, I play bass trombone. I have played that full time for the last 10 years now-ish. Not really, but maybe like 9. And I've not been playing tenor nearly as much. I have been playing it since about 2009 in various forms or another, but not nearly as much as bass trombone. So yes, I have more experience on that side. But also, I don't really have a good tenor trombone sound concept. I have tons of sound concepts for bass trombone in my head that I can just pull on. If I am playing badly, I'll just go, oh yeah, this sound concept, and I'll just play better. And I'll sound kind of like that sound in my head on bass trombone. On tenor trombone, I don't really have that. So what I do is I default to my bass trombone sound concept, and this doesn't take to that at all. It just doesn't work. I can make it sound really big, but man, I can't play anything. I can't play high. I actually can't play low because I use too much air, etc. So I can tell you that my lack of a sound concept with the tenor trombone is what's holding me back right now. And kind of that's it, because I spent a lot of time on it, and this is actually an okay setup. It's going to be better soon. I have my other tenor coming soon. But that's kind of no excuse. I should be able to improve more than I am right now, and it's my fault for not having a good tenor trombone sound concept. So, cool. I hope this didn't blow too many minds. I hope it was somewhat sensible. Maybe you guys actually understood what I was saying. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments about sound concept, and I'll tell you guys very soon in another video about how we kind of vacuum up these sound concepts and put them in our brains. See you guys next time.